Senior Moments, sponsored by the Empowering Seniors Group on News Talk KVNU, 102 FM and 610 AM.
Good morning. This is the Senior Moments Show. I'm your host, Sid Roderer, visiting today with Sandra Escarino. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning, Sid.
It's good to have you here. And Sandra is actually a local artist that also does emotional release therapy. And it's going to be an interesting conversation that we're going to have today because we haven't had you on our show before.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here.
It's great to have you here. Bruce isn't in today, so it's just me and Sandra talking. But let me first talk briefly about our sponsor, which is the Empowering Seniors Group, a group of professionals that has dedicated their time and effort to provide information for seniors, their family members, and really anybody who cares. If you'd like to learn more about the Empowering Seniors Group, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info, or you can email us at empoweringseniors.cv@gmail.com, and the CV stands for Cache Valley. And lastly, if you have any suggestions for this show, anyone you'd like to see us invite, you can call me personally at 435-512-6406. So, Sandra, I've known you for, I don't even know exactly how long I've known you. It's been a few years now.
I think 3 or 4 years now.
Yes, absolutely. And we met through a business organization, but in your true heart, you are an artist. So maybe I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself to our listeners and kind of tell us what you're doing.
Perfect. I always like to start when I introduce myself is I create and I help. And so I love to bring those two things together. I've been an artist as long as I can remember. In fact, one of my mom's favorite stories to tell is about how when I was a toddler, my dad was babysitting and fell asleep, and I took all my grandma's lipstick and colored all over the bathroom walls with it. Which until recently was just a cute story. But when I started doing emotional release therapy with my art, I put together some really amazing things with how that all works. We can talk about that later, but so I've been an artist forever. I went to school here in the Valley for art, and I also work on some nonprofits. I do ski patrol, and I work with the Community Family Coalition, and then I do my art and emotional release therapy. Okay,
and I bet there is going to be a few people listening that have absolutely no idea what that means. Can you explain what that means?
So emotional release comes into play when we have events that happen in our life that include high emotion, either negative or happy or whatever that looks like. It tends to get stuck and our body holds it for us. And we make decisions about ourselves through these events in our lives. And the emotion that's stuck in our body with that decision keeps us repeating those patterns. So if it comes out with kind of a negative or destructive coping mechanism, anytime we feel that heightened emotion, that coping mechanism starts over again. And so when we talk about working with emotional release, I teach and I practice a modality called IPT. It's Integrative Processing Technique. And what we do is we use language and we use symbolism. And I have included using art as a way to move all that stuck emotion out of our body so that we don't have to keep repeating these cycles.
Okay. And I will admit I have attended one of your classes and have deeply enjoyed it because it let my fantasy just go wild there. The results are these maybe for our listeners, do you want to talk about if these individual or group sessions that you do?
Okay. So you mentioned the class and what she's talking about is I do a class I call Art for Emotional Release. And so I teach an art technique called neurographic drawing, which, to make it short, The technique uses both your right and left hand, and so it engages both your right and left brain to help you get into a meditative state. And then I work through emotion points, and you draw as I talk about these emotion points. And so you can interpret that for your life however you want, and that way you're releasing stuck emotion kind of on a surface level because it's intended to be kind of gentle. And you get to release that however you want onto your paper. You walk away feeling lighter because you've been able to release emotion that was stuck, and you walk away with a cool piece of art.
So do you find that people feel safer in these class sessions that you hold because they don't have to verbalize and express for everyone to understand what they're going through?
For sure. That's actually the biggest feedback I get from these classes. I hear a lot of times that, oh my gosh, I've been stuck with this, working through it in my mind over and over again, feel like I'm going in circles, and then I attended your class and I was able to sit with it in a different way. And I didn't have to talk to anybody. I didn't have to be vulnerable with anyone but myself. And I was able to work through things I didn't think I would be able to.
So would you say that people also find solutions to things they've been struggling with, not only lightened, but maybe a path out of, what did you say, habit or behavior, coping mechanism?
The coping mechanisms. I think so. I think in the group session, you can definitely make a lot of progress there. But some of those real decision-making moments and real cycle-breaking moments, those usually happen in a private session.
Okay. And how would a listener have to visualize? Can you give a brief excerpt of what you're verbally talking people through?
So in the class setting, a group setting, I get everybody drawing and working, and then I will talk about certain emotion points that usually tend to be heavier or harder emotions to work through. Things like fear or anxiety. A lot of times I'll talk about perfectionism, and we always talk about anger because that's the one that's the hardest for people to sit with. And so I verbalize what all these feelings can bring up for us. And I just kind of throw out options to get the group thinking about what that looks like in their personal life, and help them really kind of center and ground and find that in them and where it's working against them so that they can pull it out for themselves.
So do people ever talk during this in your experience, or is this a very quiet? I know that the one I attended, it was pretty quiet.
Yeah, so usually the group sessions are pretty quiet. I play some music in the background so that people can it's a very personal experience in a group setting.
Thank you, Sandra. For our listeners, maybe it's a good time also to find a piece of paper and a pen if you'd like to jot down Sandra's information. I'm going to be sure to ask her when we lead back into our second segment. But we're coming up on our break here. This is the Senior Moments Show. If you'd like to learn more about our sponsor, the Empowering Seniors Group, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info. We're going to take a little break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is Mark Thurston with White Pine Funeral Services. The best time to plan is when you have time to plan. Having a prearranged funeral gives peace of mind for everyone involved. White Pine will customize your final wishes to fit your needs, from a traditional burial to cremation to a custom headstone. White Pine also accepts prearranged plans from other mortuaries, and we will absorb any transfer or revocation fees. No penalty to you. Visit whitepinefunerals.com or come and see us for more information.
White Pine Funeral Services, here when you need us most.
Oh, it seems like yesterday I was playing with my kids on the playground.
Seems like yesterday I was building a treehouse in the backyard.
Time goes by too fast, but there is something you can do to ensure you're taken care of down the road. I'm Tracy Ferris with Quality First Insurance. A long-term care insurance policy is something we all need as we get older. If you wait until you need it, you're too late. Let me help you understand the options and benefits of long-term care insurance. Call me today, 435-752-0100. 01.
You have a lot of options when it comes to buying or selling a home. Do you list it online, sell it yourself, or do you have a realtor help? It's a major financial and emotional decision. A realtor is the liaison between buyers and sellers and really helps you navigate complex contracts, deadlines, and disclosures.
Hi, this is Sid Roeder with Achievement Realty.
I work for you to get the best outcome for your situation. Let me earn your trust with a free consultation and a free market analysis. Call me today at 512-6406. Then list it, sell it, and move on.
Did you know that one of the greatest threats to our quality of life is a fall? 1/3 of Americans 65 and older, and 1/2 of those over 80 will fall this year. Many will never be the same again, and some will never return to their homes. This is Bruce at Comfort Care. One of the ways we can help people stay in their home is through our free in-home fall protection survey. Let us help you identify these fall risks. Call us at 754-7676. Comfort Care, 754-7676.
Welcome back. This is the Senior Moment Show. This is your host, Sid Roeder, visiting today with Sandra Escarino. She is a local artist and does emotional release therapy. And we've talked a little bit about how those therapeutic classes work. There's also solo. And I promised when we lead back in that I was going to ask you for your contact information in case anybody would like to try it out.
Yes, my preferred way to be contacted is through text message, and you can text me on my cell phone. That number is 435-512-5104, and I love to get names right off the bat and just ask me about emotional release, and we can go from there.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about how this is a very gentle way to process with coping mechanisms and feelings that you have, anger, anxiety, fear, all those beautiful things. So I was going to ask you if you have any stories that you're able to share, of course, without giving away any names with people that have worked with you.
Right. So the first one that's popping into my head was from one of my very first art classes that I did. I reached out to the people who attended and asked for kind of a review of the class, mostly to see where I could improve. But one of the things that was said in those reviews is that this person had really been struggling with deciding whether or not to get some help with a trauma she had as a child. And she kept thinking, in her words, she said, I kept thinking that maybe I made it up, that maybe it wasn't real and I didn't actually need help with it. And being able to work through the emotions we worked through in this group setting class, it helped me come to the decision where I do need help and I would like to address the stuck emotions from that time.
Yeah, when we talked before the radio show and we're kind of seeing what points would be most beneficial for our listeners, you were explaining to me, and I'd like for you to explain that to the listener, that depending on what life stage we're in, we don't necessarily have the words.
Right. So, from the time we are conceived, really, we start having experiences, and language, written and verbal, is actually a learned thing for our brain. Our brain actually communicates in images. So, we all know that babies don't talk, right? But they do express. Toddlers, they talk a little bit, but they get frustrated and they express different ways, like coloring on the walls, right? And so we get into this cycle of frustration and not being able to express and just holding everything in. And then we get to our adult life, and you keep talking about your sponsor, the seniors, and even into our senior years, and we have these emotional triggers, but we don't actually have language for it because it happened when we were a toddler. And we didn't have language for it then. We don't have language for it now. We just know what it feels like. Right. And so that's where this modality that I do, the integrative processing technique, it really shines because we don't actually have to have the language for it to be able to process and work through it. We can use imagery and we can use, coloring or just describing what this feeling looks and feels like. And it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that sounds pretty intriguing. It makes me just wonder, I don't know if you've considered that at all yet or not, but I could even imagine that for some dementia-related diseases, this might be a very powerful way to still find some expression.
It is, and the beauty of it, working with patients with dementia or even Alzheimer's, is that they don't actually have to remember the event for this to be effective. They just have to know what feelings are coming up. And most of the time, people with dementia or Alzheimer's or any kind of memory problems like short-term memory loss, long-term memory loss, the body stores the feeling, so the feeling keeps coming back. And so we can just talk about the emotion, and it will help them still resolve, even without an active memory of an event.
So have you dealt with, since you've been teaching this technique, have you dealt with some seniors?
I actually have 2 clients that are seniors, and one of them does, in fact, have dementia, early onset dementia. So, yeah, and she's been able to make some great progress.
Oh, that's fantastic. So how does it work if I would prefer to have individual classes from the get-go? What's your process? I give you a phone call. Is there a goal setting of any sort, or how does this work?
Okay, so if you wanted to book with me right now, my phone number, 435-512-5104.
Now say that in slow for the people with the pen.
435-512-5104, and you just text me and say, I would like to schedule a private session with you.
And let me just understand this correctly. There's no strings attached. If somebody doesn't like it, they don't have to come back. But your experience is that actually people do come back for a repeat session, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah, so 1 session, 5 sessions, you don't have to decide now. You can decide as it comes along. But what it looks like is we book the session. You come. I answer any questions you might have about how the process works. And then we do the process. And they usually take, the private sessions are between an hour and an hour and a half. I usually tell people to plan on about 2 hours. And the group classes, I also have people plan on 2 hours for the group class.
And what kind of materials do you provide?
I provide all materials needed. So you just have to show up.
Okay. And is it just colored pens, or what is it that's available for?
In a private session, the materials are, I have a little bit of everything. I have crayons, pens, colored pencils. I have paint. I have, watercolor paint, oil paint, acrylic paint. I have everything in my private studio when you come for a private session. And private sessions, you don't have to bring in art. A lot of people find it super helpful, so I always have it available. In the group sessions, we have markers and paper and colored pencils.
Okay. So we're already coming up on our second break. Can I ask really quickly on pricing?
Pricing. My private sessions start at $90. If you come to a public group session, it's just $30 a person. If you want to book a private group session, it's a minimum of 5 people. So
if I got some friends together, that would be a good option to try out in a group session, correct?
Exactly.
Okay. And before we get out on our break, Sandra, maybe one more time, your phone number.
That is 435-512-5104.
This is the Senior Moments Show. Again, our sponsor is the Empowering Seniors Group. If you'd like to learn more about them, you can do so online at empoweringseniors.info. We're going to take a little break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is Brian Erickson for the Sunshine Minute. Each day, our nurses, CNAs, cooks and servers, housekeepers, laundry staff, music, recreation therapy teams, office staff, receptionists, and many more arrive around the clock. These heroes show up ready and willing to serve and protect our residents and clients. We are so grateful to our dedicated team. On behalf of the Board of Sunshine Terrace Foundation and our community, thank you to all of our employees for keeping us safe. We bring more to life together.
Reed's Pharmacy in Hiram offers free delivery service 5 days a week, Monday through Friday throughout the valley. Just stay home and they will deliver to you. With 25 different suppliers, they won't have the shortage that others might have. Also, with compounding and many other services, they will be able to serve all your needs. In order to stay safe and help slow the spread, please call Reed's Pharmacy in Hiram at 245-DRUG and they will take care of you.
It's tough knowing how to care for an aging parent. Mom has always been there for me, but now I need to be there for her. When we found out she needed surgery, I wondered how I could attend to her needs and still be mom to my kids. I was so relieved to learn about transitional rehab at Maple Springs in North Logan. From the nurses to the physical therapists, it was like their whole staff was focused on helping Mom get better. Maple Springs in North Logan was an answer to my prayers.
Learn more at maplespringsnorthlogan.com or call 753-9400.
Welcome back. This is the Senior Moments Show. I'm your host, Sid Roeder, visiting today with Sandra Escarino. She is a local artist that also does emotional release therapy here in Cache Valley. And we've talked a little bit about how that works and also talked about the fact that Sandra has clients that do deal with dementia-related diseases. And I wanted to circle back to that one a little bit and ask you why art works for dementia patients.
So the cool thing about art, and specifically the way I do it, this neurographic drawing technique, is that it engages both sides of the brain at the same time. Language only engages one side of the brain. But if you turn that language into music and art form, it engages both sides of the brain now. And so this neurographic drawing technique we actually use the right and left hand, and that is for the purpose of engaging both sides of the brain. And if you look into neuroscience, that is where healing happens, is when we're engaging both sides at the same time. That's where healing happens. And so it actually has the power to create new brain neural synapses, which is what helps us break out of cycles and work through things we're stuck in.
So how do I have to visualize that when you're saying we're working but with both hands? Do I get a pen in each hand and draw simultaneously, or how does that work?
So that is one way to do it. The way I teach is that we have an object on your paper and we push it with our right hand from the right side to the left side, and we're pushing it with a marker. Right, so we push it across, and then once it gets to the left side, we switch hands, and we go with our left hand and push it to the right again with our left hand. And so the way that works and how it kind of translates is that we get into this calm, meditative state where we're not triggered anymore, and our heart and our mind can connect, and both sides of our brains can connect. And that's where learning and growing happens, is when we're in this peaceful, meditative state. And engaging both sides of the brain at the same time.
So what are some of the typical comments you get after you teach somebody?
I had a client come to one of the classes, and she is a yoga instructor. And previously, before that, she said, I had never experienced a true meditative state other than when I was doing yoga. I didn't know it was possible. And so this was a whole new experience, something she was well out of her comfort zone, and she was able to achieve that meditative state and do some real emotional growth and healing.
Yeah, and I can, as I mentioned before in the show, I've attended one of your classes, and I was quite intrigued too on how every individual had a complete different, the instructions in parentheses were the same for everyone, but the turnout was absolutely amazing to see the different personalities manifest on paper there.
Right. And that's actually the funnest part of the class for me, is to see everybody's piece at the end. It really is an interpretation of who they are and what they have inside. The different use of color and texture and line movement is unique to every person, and it's unique to every experience. I've had people come back multiple times and their piece is completely different every time. And that's just because they were working on something new each time they came.
So do you also see people switching in what they use, what kind of pens or paint they use?
Yeah, I do. And that's when I work with private clients, and one day they'll come and they're like, I really need to be in control. I have to use pencils. And one day they come and they're feeling totally out of control, and you can see that in what art supplies they pick to work with. So
that's amazing. I can imagine that varies. So do you also offer canvas and oil or acrylics or something if somebody asks for it?
I do. In my private sessions, I do. It gets a little chaotic in the group sessions, but in a private session, you get to pick what you work with.
Okay, well, that sounds great. We're already moving towards the end of our show here, Sandra, so I want to give you a chance if there's anything that stands out to you that we haven't talked about, any story that you remember that you'd still like to share with our listeners.
Yeah, I would actually really love to share one of my own personal stories. When I very first started doing these classes, I had a really horrible experience the day of that class, and I debated on canceling it, and I thought, no, I can't cancel it because I need this. and so I'd witnessed some things at the mountain that were really hard and traumatic to witness, and it's something that would normally, I had to recover for days afterwards. And I was able to work through those triggering emotions while I was actually teaching a class. And so it's something I've been able to move through seamlessly instead of it kind of taking me out of commission for a couple of days.
Yeah, that sounds, I can understand how that could be, Sandra. We're coming up on the end of our show, so I don't want to take out another last chance to mention your phone number in case somebody is interested in booking a class with you.
Yeah, my phone number is 435-512-5104, and I would love to hear from you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in, Sandra. I think this was very interesting and exciting. I hope you get some phone calls after this. This is the Senior Moments Show. Again, we are sponsored by the Empowering Seniors Group. If you'd like to learn more about them, it's empoweringseniors.info online. We'll hope you tune in again next week.